Werewolves, berserkers, kitsune. From the most ancient times, tales have been told of people who transform into beasts. Sometimes they're friendly and helpful. Sometimes they're tricksters. And sometimes they're terrifying. Bridget's Gate Press presents Weretales, a shapeshifter anthology, a collection of scary, thrilling, dark, mysterious, and even humorous short stories and poems of shapeshifters. From the talented minds of Jonathan Mayberry, Gabino Iglesias, Laurel Hightower, Kev Harrison, S.H. Cooper, Cynthia Paleo, Sarah Tantlinger, Stephanie Wojtowicz, Linda Addison, Villamay Mist, and many, many more. Weretales releases September 21st in Kindle ebook and paperback, and is available to pre-order now on Amazon.
The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Hello, welcome to Staring into the Abyss. I'm your host, Richard Gerlach. With me, as always, is Michael Patrick Hicks.
Hello, Hicks.
Matt Brandenburg.
Hi, welcome to my negative comments.
And Vietnamese Mist.
Hey, guys.
Hey,
welcome back.
Welcome back.
I know. I missed the other show last week for a camping trip where I got no sleep.
Aww.
Oh.
It's not what you think. A lot of people probably think like, oh, she was partying so much. I'm like, no, I couldn't sleep because my husband was snoring so loud.
Well, at least he kept the bears away.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there's
There are no fucking bears here. The biggest wild animal that we have is like the Arctic fox, and it's scared of us more than we are scared of it.
Aww.
Well, yeah, with all that racket your husband makes, no kidding.
Yep.
It just wants you to think that. Then it's going to come in and sneak in.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would just take the fox and just cuddle it.
Well, today we're going to be discussing Wet Work by Philip Nutman, which I would consider to be a, what would you call it? A buried classic?
Yeah, I think maybe we ought to redo this. This is like unburying the dead, kind of, with this book.
Oh, I get it. Nice pun. What I would call it is the 80s action movie of 1994.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, it is like an 80s action movie, but I think that's what makes it fun.
And it was, I think, originally written in the 80s, so that does make sense. It was, in the copy that I have, Nutman has some notes at the back that he had originally written it during Reagan's presidency.
Yes, I read that too.
And then after going through the second draft and publisher's notes, by then Bush ended up becoming the next president, so he had to kind of rework a little bit of the timeline.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I have no editor's notes in my book. So
I just have whatever the paperback was that came out way back when.
Same.
So nothing fancy on my end.
It'll be fun to see what's different. I don't think there's much different, but you never know.
I suspect there probably isn't. I think it was just adding in a little bit more gore here and there, although from the sounds of his notes, there wasn't even that much that could have been cut.
There's a lot of gore in the original book.
Yeah, well, apparently his publisher, whoever, I think, was it Dover that published it originally? They wanted when he submitted his first draft, one of the editor's notes that was returned was, "We need this to be gorier."
Yeah, yeah. This is like, no. You need more. Give me severed penises.
Yeah. We need more sex and violence, and you need to get this bloodier and gorier and
less espionage. Yeah, he said that he wanted to cut most of the espionage off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can get into it, but it feels, at least from my reading of this book, like if you erased, I don't even think they say the word zombie in this, but it would be very easy to change this into them being, I don't know, like terrorists or something like that. Like there is some eating of people because it is a zombie story, but honestly, through 90% of it, I was like, this is just an action novel, which is nothing wrong with it, but it'd be very easy for him to take out some of the things, and then you would not think of this as a horror book at all. But we can discuss that more in a minute.
Yeah, I think we have some meat to dive into.
We do. So for our weekly recommendation, I have just finished the new Beau Johnson collection, A Brand New Dark.
And what are your thoughts at the end of there? I know you were praising it quite a lot last week.
It is fucking phenomenal.
Awesome.
I'm going to go out and buy his other collections after this.
Okay.
So a little bit about this collection. I said all of Beau Johnson's books are short story collections. This is the only one where all the stories are about Bishop Rider. The other collections, some of the stories are about Bishop Rider, and some of the stories are just other random short stories. And you can buy any Beau Johnson collection and get everything you need to out of the character and out of the stories. You don't have to read all the collections in order to understand Bishop Rider's story in its entirety. He jumps around different timelines of this character too, so as a reader, your entry point's anywhere. But this one is fully Bishop Rider, and it is gory and it packs a punch. It's some of the most vivid violence and impactful violence I've read in a long time.
Nice.
Very cool.
I definitely need to read his stuff.
Yeah. Even though you say we don't have to read them in order, I will anyway, just because I'm a nag for that kind of sequencing. Like, I'm going to have to find out the publishing order. And I think he's only got 3 books, so thankfully it's not like a giant hurdle to...
Yeah.
So 4 books, but it's not too many.
I'm not joining him like 25 books into the series like I did with Mayberry's Joe Ledger stuff. So
this character too, like even in the collections, the character's story is told out of order.
Yeah.
So like you, as a reader, you have to kind of piece together what moment of this character's life you're reading about at this time, and it all kind of pieces together the more you read.
How is this structured in terms of, like, is there an overarching plot to the book, or is it just standalone short stories? Is it like a thematic collection?
I mean, they're all standalone short stories, but in every story, Bishop Rider has the same objective, which is to catch the man who killed his family. And each story involves him getting closer to the man who did it, or it involves him tackling a different like crime group that's causing issues in the area, because he's trying to make sure, like, even if and when he gets his revenge, he wants to make sure that it doesn't happen to anybody else. So he's like the Punisher on like an extreme level.
Yeah. I know you had mentioned that last week, and that's really, I had wanted to read these, but telling me it's like the Punisher is what really solidified it for me. So.
It's a really fun and wild ride. I need to read the other ones, but I honestly, like, this collection I loved. And one other thing, and then I'm done for things for this week, is I started reading She Was Found in a Guitar Case by David James Keaton.
Nice.
To continue my crime kick. And speaking of wild, this book is also wild.
That's a hefty one, too.
It is. It's almost 500 pages.
Yeah, he's not playing around with that one.
And I'll just read to you what the back says, because this defines the book perfectly. It says, when the police knock on his door to tell him his wife was found dead in a guitar case, Dave does something he's done all his life, reacts badly. He also just rescued a creature that may or may not be a cat, and it's not talking.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's really, the story goes on from there. It gets into like policing the U.S. prison industrial complex. It gets into a lot of heavy topics, but it keeps kind of like a light, satirical, almost comical tone as it gets darker and darker as well.
Huh. That's pretty new, right?
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, that sounds sweet.
Besides a couple of video games, which I'll mention real quick later, I'm done for my recommendations. But Mike, what about you?
I read a book called Wet Work this week.
How was it?
You know what? I'll talk about it in a little bit.
All right.
I'm having a bit of an issue outside the office, so I will be back in just a couple minutes. You guys carry on.
Can do.
What about you, Matt?
I also read Wet Work, but obviously we're talking about that. No, I started Vasterian volume. I think the newest one that came out, which I have the number, volume 4, issue 1. So that's the latest from Grimscribe. And as always, John collected some amazing stories and essays in here. The last story I read, which I absolutely adored, and I'm so mad I don't have it in front of me to tell you who the author is or what the title, I think, was Attend. And it's funny because we sort of discussed a story similar to this with Hailey Piper way back when. It's basically about people in, I think it is in France, but regardless, that doesn't matter. Everyone has to wear masks, and if you don't wear your mask, then we'll find out you are in big trouble. And we're following somebody who started realizing that the crows have gotten smart, and the crows are wearing masks because they see everyone else wearing them. And they find a crow that seems to be injured, so they go to take care of this crow, only to realize that crow was bait, and all the other ones tear off this person's mask, because when you lose your mask, you basically get murdered brutally, and the crows want to eat. So they basically did this whole thing just so they would have a free meal. And absolutely perfect kind of story that you would want to read, and just kind of really disturbing and creepy, because to think about animals outsmarting us and figuring us out is always kind of scary. But yeah, I'm about halfway through it. It's just another great one. If people aren't subscribed to this, I highly recommend it. They always put in such a great amount of work. There's some awesome artwork in there. So yeah, volume 4, issue 1 is just amazing. Every time he tops himself. So
I need to start it, but I'm just also going to throw out there, if you want to get the paperback versions of Vasterian, subscribe to their Patreon at the $6.66 tier.
Yep.
Because you get a copy of the magazine every time it comes out.
Which I think is like 3 times a year.
It comes out 3 times a year, and it is also like, I think, $12 if you buy it regular. So you're saving some money for yourself too.
Yeah, and you're just supporting
a great cause, because Grimscribe is a great publisher.
Yes. So that is what one of the things I'm reading, and I can bring up another one once we get back around.
All right, so Viet Me, you said you have a lot of movies.
Yes. Oh my God, it's not just movies. I've just also been watching a lot of shows. I'm basically doing what I shouldn't be doing, instead of like writing stuff. Like whenever I see like on Twitter, everyone's just hustling like write. I'm like closer to the TV screen instead.
Sometimes you need a break. I get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't here last weekend, but I can tell that I finished Hailey Piper's short story collection.
Nice.
The Unfortunate Elements of My Anatomy by Hailey Piper, and this short story collection is so good. I still have to put a review on it on my booktube, but I'm probably going to be praising it to the roof, probably to the moon, because it's so amazing. And I just love her writing, how she weaves stories, and it sometimes they get confusing, but right at the end, like everything makes sense, and you're like, oh my god, you managed to put it into words that I could never imagine to do it myself.
Yeah.
So that people should definitely read everything by Hailey, because she is a rising star.
Yes.
She's a fantastic writer.
Just so good. And she's a definite role model for me as well. She's a person everyone can look up to.
Yes, definitely.
But in regards to, I went to see Old.
Yes. How was it?
With M. Night Shyamalan. I enjoyed it. It's not Shyamalan's best. I don't think he can ever go back to his success with, The Sixth Sense or Unbreakable or Split.
Yeah.
Those are my three favorites with Shyamalan. But it was entertaining. The concept was interesting. There's a family that goes to like a resort in the middle of nowhere. I can't remember where. They never specified where it was, but it was like, kind of like a paradise kind of feel. And they get this kind of, you're the special members of our, resort, so you get to go and visit this beach that is like VIP only. And they go there, and they have to go through this like a winding labyrinth kind of like cliff through in order to get to the beach. And it looks great until they find a body there. And they have no idea what happened to that body. And so they try to go, get out of the beach, but they can't. So they're stuck on the beach.
Oh.
And then some weird things start to happen to them in which they all start to feel and look old. It doesn't really show that much with the adult members of the family and the other people that are stranded on the beach with them. It's more prominent in the children.
Yeah.
Like, they get old fast. And, there was stuff in there that, that were kind of disturbing to see, like, especially because, the kids, they were growing old, but they still had the mentality of children.
Oh, wow.
And there was this one scene in that movie that was like, oh, God, please don't show that.
Oh, no.
And it was both cringy and disturbing at the same time.
Excellent. Those are always fun.
Yeah, and of course, being Shyamalan, he has all of his, cinematic tropes.
Yes.
The panning of the camera, the huge foreshot of the characters. You can basically see the pores on their skin.
Yes.
And of course, the twist at the end.
Yes. So he's still doing that. Still doing the twist.
He's. I don't think he's ever going to shy away from that. But I noticed he got himself a bigger role this time.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah,
yes.
He's reaching out more. And he's like, I can do better than Hitchcock, and he probably will star in his old movies sometime.
I'm surprised he hasn't done that part yet.
Yeah. So yeah, the concept was interesting. I enjoyed it. The only thing that I really complained about was that the acting of the adult actors, they were stonier than statues.
Oof.
They were just like, I think it was because they were not like, they weren't like, how to say, like A-list actors or anything like that. Those were these people were people with you haven't probably seen before.
Yeah, because it's got what's his name in it? Gabriel, isn't it? It's Gabriel Garcia.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So
which I like, but it's like
actors which you're not that much familiar with, so you're not really sure like if it's intentional that the acting is so stony or if it's just them.
I would say he kind of does that a lot at Shyamalan.
Yeah. I mean, Signs, dear God.
Yeah, so I was thinking that too, or even like The Village to an extent. They were all very stony.
Or Lady of the Lake.
Yes.
So it just might be a Shyamalan thing.
Yeah,
maybe.
I want you to be more stilted and stoic.
Yes, and don't try to bring the dialogue to a normal level.
Yeah.
It's the George Lucas school of directing.
Yes, I hate sand.
Don't emote.
I hate sand.
I hate sand.
It gets everywhere.
Yep.
I need to see that movie. I want to read the book or the comic it's based on first.
Yeah. I noticed that it was based on I think it's a French graphic novel. called It's called the Sandcastle.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to read that one actually, because I want to see how much he deviated from the actual story, because he tends to do that a lot, and I'm still really, really bitter and salty about how he ruined the Avatar franchise.
Oh my gosh, I could talk an hour about that.
That's a whole podcast on this.
That's a whole ranting podcast that we can do sometime later. We can add it on the Patreon maybe.
Yeah, there we go.
It took me a minute to realize you weren't talking about James Cameron's Avatar.
No. There's one thing to take from a story and another thing to have an actual show where you can hear people pronounce names and still
have them
somehow
mispronounced in the movie.
Yep. So, okay, I watched that one. I finished. I need to, give a shout out to the Icelandic show Katla.
Oh.
I finished that one on Netflix.
Nice.
And if you guys haven't watched it yet, I recommend it. It is good. A lot of people, especially here in Iceland, it's so funny because this is something new that we don't typically do. Like, we are most commonly known for doing a lot of noir, like crime noir shows.
Yeah.
Which is
I love those shows.
Yeah, which is bleak as fuck.
Yeah.
But here they kind of stepped out of their comfort zone and they decided to mix in like a sci-fi element along with going back to our roots, to our folklore, the Icelandic folklore, with the hidden people, or huldufólk, as we say in Icelandic. And I thought it really worked really well, like mixing it all up and getting to watch how the characters are all interacting. And it cannot be an Icelandic stuff without being, of course, bleak as fuck. Like the end, I was like, oh my god, what? And I cried in one episode. I was like, oh my god, what's happening? This is awful. And so the basic premise of Katla is that, the volcano Katla has been like erupting for a year. It kind of sounds like something that this small volcano that we have now is doing. It's been erupting for 4 months right now.
Crazy.
I know. But it has been like this is the volcano that actually a lot of us are worried it's going to erupt, because if it will erupt, it's going to be a big one. So it will be the kind of thing that it will, darken the sky and you won't see sun for a long time.
That's crazy.
Yep. And so they kind of went on with that idea, and so we were basically just watching a few villagers that is basically at the base of the volcano, because the volcano is situated on top of inside a glacier, so it's not as dangerous. But at the same time, they are experiencing ash storms and stuff. And then the main character Grima. She's kind of like a volunteer at the search and rescue squad that we have here. It's basically just a volunteer thing. And she's been kind of in mourning for a whole year because she lost her big sister during the eruption. And she's still dealing with, the process of mourning and the loss and grief and everything. But then everything turns around, like when she suddenly finds a naked person stumbling out from the glacier, and it turns out it's her sister.
What? And
the sister has no memory of how she got there and everything, so she basically just wants everything to go back to normal. But how can it go back to normal when you've been gone for a year?
Yeah.
And then more people start coming out from the volcano. One in particular was like a Swedish person who disappeared 20 years ago, like 20 years before the volcano eruption. And then they try to contact, next of kin, like how can we find anyone who is related to you? And they find the name, and it's the same name of the person, and it's the same person, and she's still alive, and she lives in Sweden. So the Swedish person's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
She goes to Iceland, and she's basically seeing a version of herself that's 20 years younger.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, and things get weird. And there's like this other like a geologist who is studying the volcano, and he has lost his child like 3 years ago. It was like an 8-year-old boy that died in a car accident, I think. And he's, of course, still dealing with the grief and stuff. And then suddenly his kid arrives and pops out from the volcano, still at the same age where he died. So every time there's like this new mystery coming up and you don't know what's happening and you're just like, what's happening? And then
sounds amazing.
It is. And then ominous things, start to happen more. You start to question whether these people are real or not, or whether they're like in the Icelandic folklore, if they're changelings.
Oh.
And then,
I like that.
And then you have to deal with that. And it's just, like every episode, it's slow burn, because that's basically how Icelandic shows are. It's really slow. But each episode ends on a cliffhanger. So you're always like, okay, nope, I have to watch the next one. So I ended up like watching like how many? It was 10 episodes, and I binged like 5 episodes till 2 a.m. in the morning because I needed to know what was happening.
This sounds amazing. It's on Netflix?
It's on Netflix, yeah.
Oh, buddy. I'm bored.
So you can have fun with listening to the Icelandic, and it's going to be mixed with English and Swedish, so it's going to be a fun learning situation as well.
Oh, I love it. This sounds amazing.
It does sound really good. It's better than the last Netflix show I watched, so.
Okay. What else? I finished He-Man.
Oh, I'm watching that now.
I just started that.
I love it.
It's so good. I love it.
It's so much fun.
I just love the animation and how the cinematography and just the characterization of the characters.
Yes.
I loved everything about it. I just loved how every single voice actor fitted perfectly with them.
Yes, I've been loving, the voice actors are awesome. And I agree. I like how they're kind of, they're playing a little bit. What I like is they're playing a little bit on both sides of it. So they're making it a little bit stronger than the old show, because the old show was just to sell toys.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more. There's more in-depth story there, but then also some of the characters still are exactly kind of like the old-timey, like the old cartoon show, which I think is fun. It's that tongue-in-cheek humor.
They're just they're playing with a nostalgia while at the same time bringing up a whole new story.
Yes,
which I loved. Like they're continuing on with it.
Yeah, and
even though I was kind of shouting at the TV that I wanted them to acknowledge that Adora was still missing. It's like, when are you going to do that crossover? Do it!
No, seriously. Did you watch She-Ra?
Of course.
Yes, we went through all of that when that was out, and I loved it. So yeah, I've been waiting for that too. So it's good. It's kind of sad to know, but good to know that I haven't that it hasn't happened yet.
Yes. So yeah, definitely watch that one. It's quick. It's like I think you can probably watch it within 2 hours or so if you want to binge it.
Yeah,
it's not that long.
Yeah, half the season.
Which I was sad about. I want more.
Right.
You'll be getting more.
Yeah, thank God for that.
Right. Yeah, I'm not super far in. I think I'm on the 4th episode. Maybe just started it. But I like so far, I mean, like, obviously the first episode He-Man's in, but I like how they're kind of focusing on the other characters these last couple episodes.
Yeah, that's what I'm really like. It's like we need to know more about them too.
Yes, exactly. So
yeah, I finished that. Dear God, I've been watching a lot. But I also finished a horror game, actually. I saw it. Someone recommended it on TikTok, and I decided it's on Steam. Why not try it? And it's called Lost in Vivio. And it's not that big of a game. Like the graphics are like goddamn awful, but it's reminiscent of Doom, like the original.
Oh, nice,
game.
Nice.
Like the graphics are like it's basically set in that kind of environment, in my opinion.
Love it.
So it's basically just you're this guy who's just out on a walk with your dog, which is a cute little corgi, and you're like, oh, doggo.
I just want to play. Can you pet the dog?
Yes, you can.
Excellent. All right.
But then suddenly there's so much rain and the dog is swept under a drainage.
Oh no.
And you're like, oh no, and you have to go find him.
Oh my goodness.
So you go onto the sewers, and you don't have that many weapons. The only thing that you have is you find stuff along the way, but at first you're just walking through these claustrophobic tunnels. So this was kind of, the game did say like, this is it's meant to induce claustrophobia. And I'm like, well, good job on that. It's working. Yeah. And it was recommended to have just, they were supposed to have like headphones on, but my husband and I were playing it together, so that wasn't possible. But if you had the headphones on, you'd probably be, a much more like an anxious wreck.
Yeah, I bet.
So the only thing that you had at the beginning, you had this, you could only whistle, to call for the dog.
Oh.
And the dog would sometimes respond, and there were so many winding tunnels, and forks everywhere, and you were like, I don't know which way to go.
Oh my gosh.
So you're just basically
terrifying.
So you're just basically going through this labyrinth, and suddenly you're into kind of like more tunnels, and then you have to go and crawl through pipes, and every single time, like, there's something gonna come in between. I just kept imagining the aliens sequence with Bishop crawling, and I'm like, I don't want that.
God.
And it just goes on, and it goes deeper into a nightmare-ish world where you are kind of thrown into this like an experiment. And there's kind of like really weird creatures crawling around, and you are just trying to get there and find your fucking dog.
Oh, wow. That sounds awesome.
And I think there are like 3 endings that you got. You could get the good ending, the bad ending, and the really bad ending.
Oh, no.
And thankfully, my husband and I, we got the good ending. We found Doggo.
Yay! Oh, man. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a super simple game, but, if it managed to induce these kind of, like, feelings within you, then for me, that's what horror games are supposed to be.
Definitely. That sounds amazing.
It really does.
Yeah. So it's on Steam if you guys have Steam, and if you want to, be scared shitless, you definitely need to check it out.
I'm going to hunt this down.
Me too. I've actually started 2 video games. Well, not really. One of them I've been playing, so neither of these are horror-based. But Final Fantasy XIV has a new expansion coming out in October. So I decided to renew my Final Fantasy XIV subscription to get myself ready for the expansion coming out. And then I realized I never beat Shadowbringers, so I'm trying to get myself through Shadowbringers, which is honestly the best Final Fantasy story I've ever played since 6. So
nice.
It has that going for it. The people who are like Final Fantasy fans who haven't played 14 because they don't like MMOs are missing out on like probably the best Final Fantasy story in like 30 years or 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I also started another game called 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim, which is another game by Vanillaware, who are the people who made what is it? They're known for their anime, very beautiful hand-drawn styles, but the games they made before are, let me get them up real quick. Vanillaware, some of the more popular games they made are Odin Sphere and Dragon's Crown are like the 2 really big ones they did before in the past. This one is a mixture of a visual novel and a tactics game that deals with time travel, kaiju, giant robots, and the end of the world.
Huh. Your normal things.
Yeah.
There's parts of it that are very anime-y, but the story itself is like really, really deep, and I'm digging both the tactics portion of the game and the visual novel portion of the game. So I'll probably be playing that over the next week. But
sounds pretty awesome.
That's just me being a nerd. Getting ready for that new Final Fantasy expansion. So that's where I'll be for the next few months. But I think if we're all set with recommendations, it's time to get into the world of contract killing.
Yay!
What work?
The best.
Learn our darkest secrets and find out where to hire us.
So
if you need help and if you can find us, then maybe you can hire the Abyss team.
So I will say with Wetwork, this novel came into my radar pretty recently. I got Book of the Dead like 2 years ago, and I never read all the stories. I hopped around reading like Richard Lehman's story, Ramsey Campbell's story, Stephen King's story. Like I hopped around picking and choosing what the stories to read. Never heard of Philip Nutman before, so I skipped Wetwork when I first read that anthology.
Bleeding shame.
Yeah, it's a really fun short story, which we'll talk about getting into the book too. This book popped up on Facebook with a few authors posting their favorite zombie novels, and I know Bracken McLeod put this as like number 2. A couple other authors put this as number 1, and I'm like, I never heard of this book. I should fix that. So that's
basically me in a nutshell.
I found a cheap copy on eBay, and I devoured the book in like 2 days last month.
Yeah.
Yeah, same as me. It was a quick read once you got into it.
Yeah, the prose is really fast. I was impressed by like Nutman as a writer and just like how fast he reads and how engaged he's able to make me as the reader in the book.
I agree.
I would have loved to see more novels from him, but this is the only one that we have.
Yeah, he died a few years ago, I think. So
yeah, he had a pretty bad battle with alcoholism.
It's a shame. I know I was about 20% into this thing. I was like, God damn it, I wish we had another book of his.
We have an out-of-print short story collection. Hopefully there's an estate set up that can get it back into print, though.
Yeah, I don't know.
I feel like this book is kind of a forgotten gem. I mean, as Matt said earlier, it is very much an 80s action novel at points. I'd say it's like a mixture of action and horror would be like the best way to put it.
Yeah, there's an opening where the operatives are gathering in a hotel to go about trying to raid a drug cartel house. And it's very much like a kind of Schwarzenegger Expendables kind of moment where you can kind of see like, here's where if this had been a movie, you would have had like all of the big 80s action heroes. There would have been like Schwarzenegger and Stallone and Kurt Russell all gathering here. And
right. All being tough and muscly. There's a guy in the corner sharpening a knife, and
if this had been put like as an action film, which one would play which?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah, because I mean, since you mentioned Expendables, I mean, Dolph Lundgren would probably be Skolomowski.
Yes. Yeah. I could see that. I could see. I mean, Corvino.
Stallone would be Corvino.
Yeah, because he had to be Italian.
Yeah, I think Stallone or Russell would be a good Corvino.
Yes. And I was trying to think for like Nate.
I can't believe I'm undead now. Hey, Adrian.
Like, I almost thought Nate would have been Stallone would have been a good Nate.
I think Kurt Russell would have been a good.
Kurt Russell.
Yeah. You mean Nick Packard?
Or Nick, whoever the cop is. Yeah.
Yeah, Nick.
Yes. I think either of them would have been because they could play that kind of like he's not super tough, but he kind of can be. So with his daddy issues.
Yeah, I think Kurt will be good as Nick. If he didn't muscle up.
Yes. Yeah.
If he got a little bit thinner.
He could have been Val Kilmer could have played him.
Oh well. I mean, if you're gonna throw the Batman guys, why not George Clooney?
Oh, good point.
Yeah.
I don't know. Michael Keaton couldn't have played any of these. He would have made it too good.
I think Harris, probably Jason Statham.
Yeah.
I think Michael Keaton could have been a good president.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Maybe. Yes. Yeah. I think this would have been it totally fit that action.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Fan casting is kind of way outside of our usual realm, but
that is true.
I think here it makes a certain amount of sense because, for one thing, Philip Nutman was more known for his screenplays. He was a big Hollywood writer. And also this book was very clearly inspired by a lot of those movies of that era. You've got a lot of... There's a John Carpenter aesthetic. It's very clearly Romero vibes throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
So those of us who are like, no, I can't believe they're fan casting on this stupid show. It's like, well, yeah, but there is a certain degree of sensibility to that.
I mean, also, when you're reading the story, it also feels like you're reading a screenplay.
Yeah.
Especially the first beginning. You can just see how if this was the screenplay, you would know immediately how the actor were supposed to emote.
You can visualize all the scenes perfectly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I think about it, maybe Steven Seagal is Corvino, because if we're going back to the 80s, he's got that dojo in his apartment. You've got this very marked for death kind of feel where he's meditating, and you can kind of sense that the acupuncture with the smoking needles.
Yes, 100%.
I mean, if you're going with cop, then I think Bruce Willis then would be Nick Packard.
Yeah.
I love the cheesy meditation scenes with Corvino.
Oh, that was so funny. Yeah.
It was funny, especially when I was reading that part and he said silk.
Yeah.
And I was like, I practiced karate for a while when I was a kid, and we definitely did not have silk.
Oh my gosh.
Those things would cause friction, guys.
Yes. Well, and that's, Mike, you bringing up Steven Seagal fits perfectly, because I swear he's in movies, he's got a silky.
Yeah.
He doesn't fight in them, but it's like his little calm down moment, and he's like in some black silk gi. So especially
to go to the very end here, that kung fu fight he has with Skolimowski at the end, like that is a perfect Steven Seagal kind of action scene where he's just like breaking the guy's arm with a flying kick, and then he cracks his knees, and then he's going at him with a knife.
With their decaying bodies at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man. Imagine Under Siege, marked for death Steven Seagal.
I think we need to pitch this movie to Hollywood.
We got it.
I don't know how this thing never got turned into a movie. It had to have been optioned.
It was optioned.
Okay. I seem to recall, but I couldn't 100% remember if it had been optioned.
Yeah, it was optioned like a couple of times, but they never got
made is beyond me. I mean, fucking give this to John Carpenter to make it and get him all of like the 80s action stars of that era. It would have been fucking cult hit all over it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I wonder did you ever see Dead Heat? That was an 80s zombie cop movie. Maybe they saw that and they were like, we might need some time.
Maybe.
But yeah, I mean, like the last 50 pages of the book, bringing up that big kung fu fight, that was all my favorite stuff. A lot. Thinking about this as a screenplay too, what I will say is you can see like what he is good at and what he's not good at, and he spends a little time on some of the stuff that he's just not like. There's a lot of extra bits in this that I feel like probably could have been trimmed out. I didn't like, there was a lot of repeated kind of scenes, especially with Nick dealing with his wife being gone and being a cop, and then there's scenes with his wife where like those were important, especially as you kind of build on. But like at first I'm like, okay, I don't need 10 pages to see her sad and trying to figure stuff out. But man, that last, like I said, the end, all of the end stuff was amazing, which made it worth it.
Oh, Matt, you probably are going to be sad to hear, because in the, like, when Philip was mentioning, like, in the afterwards, that there was this one scene that he cut from the novel, and that was like a scene with Nick and the cops, like,
the subway?
Battling, in the subway, like battling zombies. And I'm like, damn, I actually wanted to read that.
That would have been amazing.
So if you had cut the part that, that we've been saying, that him whining and, lamenting that he wasn't there with his wife or anything like that. If you had just put that in, I'm like, yes, I wanted that.
Yes.
That's why we need to get a screenplay for this thing going, because we can incorporate some of those elements from the short story, kind of piece them back into the narrative, do the subway scene. And I also want more scenes of like the societal breakdown.
Yes.
I agree.
So we get some of that through Nick, but I don't think we get quite enough. Yeah.
No, it builds up through his eyes, and then suddenly after we've gone through Corvino's, he's just right in smack in the middle of it. Like it's been a week, and he's like, "Yep, I've been killing zombies for a week." And you're
I
like,
know. You're like, wait. I guess to back up for listeners, because I'm assuming a lot of people haven't read this, stealing a bit from Maximum Overdrive, there's a comet that is passing across the Earth, and they slowly realize, well, they don't even realize, maybe the scientists do, but we don't see that. But the comet is basically turning people who've died into zombie-esque type things. And then a little bit later, we find out that there is anyone who has a disease. It's like a super, which is very prescient for all this COVID stuff. I was like, this book is actually really close to everything that's been currently happening the last few years.
It's not just a disease. It hurts our immune system. So even like the common cold will kill us if we get it.
Yeah, everything becomes like plague level pathogen.
Yeah.
So a lot of that is happening, and slowly we get like, we as the reader can kind of, especially because we know how these things work, we can pick up pretty quick. But the story follows Corvino, who is a contract killer. It also follows Nick, who is a brand new cop to Washington, D.C. And then there's like the side characters, Nick's wife, and then Corvino has kind of his owner or whoever the hiring guy is. And so you kind of get some little bit of extra stuff, but it's basically following them as this comet is passing and things are happening. So like Corvino he's on this hit, like Mike had mentioned, and the hit kind of goes wrong because there's people already dead and there's gore everywhere, and he kills somebody who has his neck sliced. So
yeah, I would say they're not just dead.
Their skin's been carved off.
They're persistently living even though they're dead.
And Corvino keeps trying to convince himself that it's not what he thinks it is. Like the guy didn't have his neck cut all the way. I was just imagining it. So then when he gets back, they all think it's him. So they're trying to figure out like who actually who like turned on this hit. And so he's kind of in trouble. And then, then Nick, it keeps going back to him. His wife's mom is sick. So she's in a New York hospital, and he's trying to deal with alcoholism, which I guess sort of kind of plays into the story, or is just like a nice aside.
And his daddy issues.
A nice aside.
Well, like it never plays into
alcoholism. It's sweet, it's very touchy feely kind of. It's a nice aside.
He's also plays into anything. In the end, he still like goes through it all, and he's not like, his alcoholism doesn't get him killed. It doesn't help him in some way. So it's just a nice aside. Oh, he's an alcoholic, and he doesn't want to be like his dad.
Yeah, and he's taking off his belt, telling the kid, "Come get your medicine." It's like, that's an aside.
I know. Like, what the hell? So that's very basic, high level story. Then you're dealing with a lot of like other random bits. Every once in a while, he would throw in a zombie attack, especially, which I did like, is the really like jerky bro dude with his van, and then he ends up getting murdered by a zombie. I thought that was fun.
By Elvis.
Yes, there's a junkie too.
The junkie who gets killed by Elvis. I thought that was brilliant. I was like, okay. That's awesome. And I just kept like in the back of my head, I was like, did Zack Snyder just read this and take stuff from it?
Yes, I 100% thought that. Because these aren't like full on zombie, like George Romero zombies. These zombies can talk.
Some of them, yeah. There's some of them retain their full faculties that they had when they were living.
Yeah, there's like stages. There's the stage right after you die, and you can still talk and think and do stuff, and then the stage past that is straight just zombie.
And then we get George Bush. And presidential briefings. And
oh my God. It's so that, like, again, I loved the end part with all of that. That was great. But there's just fantastic. So much like in the middle.
Yes, definitely. I also kind of thought it was kind of for some reason my brain thought cute. I was like, no, that's not the word I was looking for. But the part, like, even though this novel is centered around Corvino and Nick, you get these bits and pieces about other people that, they don't matter at all. And for me, it felt like I was reading like a short story collection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. The junkie scene, the bro scene. There's a couple other.
The doctor scene.
Yes.
There's what's it, that one chapter that's just head hopping the entire chapter of random people's last moments.
Yes. Yeah. And like, I was trying to determine, because I know, and I haven't read the short story, so we can maybe talk about that in a second. But like, I that's what I was wondering, if he was trying to like fill this out, or if he did get notes that say, hey, and it sounds like he did add a little bit more gore, because those scenes, while are kind of nice just to show some of the zombie thing happening, it does feel like so out of place, because most of our main characters don't interact with any of them.
Yes. So I think it's definitely something that, we are supposed to fill in.
Well, it's kind of like, have you read The Stand, Matt?
Yes.
So it's kind of like that moment of The Stand where there's like one chapter that's just people's last moments alive.
Yeah.
And like, we don't see our characters in that novel interact with them. We don't see, like, there's no purpose that scene in The Stand shows us, just like in Wet Work, that has any impact on the plot. It's just there to show us, the reader, like, more of the societal collapse.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, and I like that. I think that, and that works. It's kind of like we were saying, like when you jump ahead a couple days and Nick has been like, oh, I've been fighting zombies all this time. It's like, well, maybe you could have played that part.
They should have had the subway scene.
Yeah.
But I would have loved to see that subway scene.
Nutman is trying to craft an apocalyptic epic in a couple hundred pages.
Yeah, I was saying that too, in like 200 pages.
There is a lot. There could have been a lot more room to maneuver with this thing.
Yes.
As it is, it doesn't feel particularly balanced. I mean, there's a lot that's going on, but it doesn't all quite hang together comfortably for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think you were just kind of wondering, like, okay, so this is about two characters, but when are they gonna interlink in the story?
Yeah. They don't until the end. Yeah, it's like 80 or 90% in before they actually have page time together.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's that disparate element where it's like, okay, you've got a subplot about this cop, and then you've got the other plot about Corvino, and they don't really intermesh. They don't have much to do with one another. It's just kind of like, it's an odd unevenness to the book itself.
Part of that has to do with it being a first novel.
Yeah. And it's kind of, it made me think of, and not in any way that they're totally related, but like, in Shaun of the Dead, which I guess is zombies in both of those, but if you think about that movie, the typical zombie movie would have not focused on Shaun and that group. It would have focused on all the action. Mm-hmm. And Shaun of the Dead's more focused on them. This is sort of like that too, because with Corvino, most of his page time is them trying to figure out if it was him that had set up, like, who had double crossed this hit, and the politics of this group. I mean, there's a lot of time spent on, like, well, he was in the military because his dad, or he was in an orphanage and it was terrible. Anyway, so like a lot of the time for him is spent on this kind of struggle and him trying to figure it out. Zombie thing for that group is like almost non-existent. And then you get to Nick, and like I said, it's focused a little bit on his wife, but it's really focused on first day as a cop in DC and how this works as a rookie. And like we spend time on him going on patrol. Now those patrols both do pretty much tied to zombie attacks, but so it kind of is like that Shaun of the Dead thing where you're like, zombie things are happening. We're just not seeing that in the book, except for
it's kind of like kept in the background.
Yes, which could work, cannot work. It just depends on what you're kind of looking for. I mean, if you're getting the cover on this book calling it the most acclaimed novel of epic terror since The Stand, that's a little disappointing because it's not, for me anyway, because the zombies are really second or third there in this stuff. So I'm like, it's not that epic terror. It's just this cool, I mean, kind of action-y, like we've been talking about, story. until the end.
The thing about with the zombies, I mean, I do like the idea that, you know, they are kind of coherent.
Yeah.
You know, they retain their sanity. They also, for some of them, retain like their conscience, like Corvino.
Yes.
And then, you know, there are some that don't. What I just would have wanted, in clashing with Corvino's story, was more of him resisting.
Yeah.
Him being a monster, because he kept going at the beginning, like, okay, I know I'm a killer, but I'm doing it for those reasons, and because I'm being paid for it and stuff. And then suddenly, when he is kind of this unbridled killer, I would have wanted to see him more like, oh no, this is not who I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
but he gave up pretty easy though. It was like
right?
when they brought up like this fresh new woman and they started dining on her. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, give me a black.
Yeah. Yeah, like, and it's funny
none
for
of this
him.
raw meat is sitting right in my stomach. I can't eat soup.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll just munch on the doorman. Fuck him. He's already.
Yeah.
Yes.
This lady already started eating him. I may as well just kill her and take the rest.
Right. Yeah, they kind of like touch that a little, but yeah, they very quickly just like, oh, he gives up really fast.
I felt that was kind of like an insult to his character, because he's been this kind of calm person. This he's doing this meditation in his gi and everything.
Yeah,
and
is he like a vegan or vegetarian?
He was a vegetarian. Yeah.
And he's supposed to be like this super killer. Like, they call him in to do the ultimate stuff.
Yeah. So he's supposed to have this kind of like, you know, super calmness, and he's this rationalization, and in which we see, of course, in the beginning.
Yeah.
But then, you know, as soon as he's given an opportunity to see a severed penis and a wide open gash on Dorman's throat, he's like, oh, fuck it, I'll just join the others.
The part for me that felt like a betrayal of his character came at the end when he's facing off with Skolimowski.
Yes.
And he has a chance to kill him, and instead he opts to go mano a mano with the guy in a knife fight at the end, which is just kind of like, that is
never bring a knife to a gunfight, guys.
Well, that is 100% Hollywood bullshit action movie writing, where it's kind of like, you're a trained assassin. You know fucking better than to do something this stupid.
Yes.
But you know what,
had him unarmed right in front of you. You could have easily shot him in the head and be done with it. But instead, you're doing this trite 100% action movie bullshit where it's like the guy wants to fight you and you're going to be the small dick combatant and be like, oh, okay, I got something to prove.
Yeah.
It was a pretty awesome fight scene.
It was an awesome fight scene, but it's also wholly out of character for this type of figure.
Yes.
I don't think any assassin would go this route with you, where it's like, you outweigh me by 100 pounds. We're both undead. Yeah, let's go have a knife fight. Like,
yeah, only if, and they try, so they set it up for Covino kind of has this girlfriend, and the girlfriend is murdered, and Covino thinks it's this Skolimowski guy, but hasn't had, like, can't prove it. Yeah, can't prove it. So, like, if they would have twisted it a little bit where, like, he knew, but there was just nothing he could have done, and so, like, that would have weighed on Covino, like, throughout the whole story, then maybe you could do that at the end and make the fight make sense because it's more personal. But you don't get enough of that to be like, oh, it's personal, you know, and that's why he's taking them apart. But
I agree that it needed more personal thing between the two of them.
Yeah, it reminded me of. Did you guys ever see that George Clooney movie, The Peacemaker?
Yes.
No.
So the original script for that, when they were shooting it, and Clooney balked at it because. Do you remember that scene? There's a chase scene, and he ends up reversing the car into the bad guys.
Yes.
And just like keeps ramming them with the car and then gets out and shoots them both in the head.
Yeah.
The original scene had for him crashing his car into theirs to disable their vehicle and then giving the guy his second carry piece so that they could have a draw. Because that was the macho Hollywood bullshit to show how good this guy is.
Yeah.
And Clooney balked at it because he's like, there's no professional operator that would do this. So they didn't do that. He just goes up and disables their car and then executes them because that's what they would do.
Right. Did they learn from Indiana Jones?
Yeah. I mean, that's what this Corvino thing reminded me of. It's like this is just complete bullshit. This is just, you're going this route simply to write a kick-ass Hollywood action scene that would look good on camera. But it just completely ruined that suspension of disbelief for me because I was immediately drawn out like, this is bullshit.
Yeah. Or like what the other thing that I don't remember if they play with too much is, so again, for readers, Corvino gets shot and then wakes back up and he's this zombie type character. But like he doesn't, what would have been nice is like if he would have, I guess he kind of knows he's going to die. I'm trying to think like if there was a way they could have worked it. Like he knows that they're both dead. Yeah. Like might as well go out having fun because they're both going to be dead in the end anyway. But I don't think there is, even though at the end he does ask the other guy to shoot him. But
one thing I like about how the zombies work in this book is like they're really only able-bodied people for like
a couple days,
a week or maybe a month tops. Or like their body rots apart.
Yes, I fucking loved the way they handled zombies in this one. I like that when they wake up, they're either like batshit insane or they're just animals or they're fully conscious. Like, holy shit, I died and now I'm back and do I have to go to work today? Like, what's the etiquette here? Where it's kind of like
talking about that was the part. Because, again, I really like the ending. However, the hard part I just couldn't wrap my brain around was the fact that whatever Corvino's boss is, I can't think of the guy's name, Herman or something like that. Hirschman. It was like, we're going to start a new society of zombie people. And, you know, they're rounding up humans to eat and all this stuff. And he's like so ready to start this new world. And that was the exact same thing I kind of thought, Mike. I'm like, but why? Why are you trying to set this back up? Like, is it just going to be back to normal except you're all zombies? So it's like, well, I guess I got to go to work now because I'm a zombie and we're keeping society the same. Because that's like his goal is like, yes, they're zombies, but it seemed like he just wanted to be in charge. So
they're rounding up all the able-bodied people to make like a human farm to keep them fed.
And I really would have liked to have seen that played out more too. Yeah, I would have liked to have had.
It was really short.
Yeah, but I guess the question for that is, for what purpose? Like, what are you gonna do after
after you get everyone and the rest of them are dying of the plague? I mean, what the fuck are you gonna do then? Are you gonna eat plague food?
Yeah, or are you just gonna sit around all day saying, "Oh, I caught all these people"? And then what?
It's the short-sightedness of like someone who wants to be in full power, not thinking things through, having a short-sighted plan to maintain his power.
It's all ego service for Hirschman to do this. He just wants to be the man at the top. That's all it is. It's a power trip.
It's just
I felt like if it was supposed to be like a power trip, if it was supposed to be displayed to this kind of big bad villain, I feel like he wouldn't have put so many people at work with him.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also people who are loyal to him too.
But at the same time, he had a lot of foot soldiers, and he was like, if I was a foot soldier, I would be like, wait, this guy's in charge?
Yeah, we're clearly in the apocalypse. Why do I need to work? Why do I need a boss?
Yeah, like I've got a machine gun, man.
It's like these poor people. Like I get the ego thing, but yeah, exactly. For everybody else, it's like, well, crap, the world is done. I'm eating humans. Why do I need to go to work for this guy? I'm just going to go do my own thing. And so
that's what I thought. I thought that would break into like pandemonium, like really immediately.
It's like, well, Bob came back 3 days ago, and now he's having a mental breakdown and killing everybody. I see George over there's flipping out.
Yeah.
But Michelle came back, and now she's killing herself, and
But I got to punch the
Georgina
clock.
over there just started a giant gunfight and executed all these prisoners, and she's going batshit. Wait a minute.
Well, the boss told me I got to go down and start cleaning up again. I will.
It seems like there's a bit of a ticking time bomb with this whole disease thing and coming back. They all seem to be going crazy. Maybe I don't want to work today.
Yeah.
Right?
I got 30-minute lunch break. I can't. This is good hours for me in my zombie apocalypse life. But I like you said, Mike, I did like that that was neat. It was a silly idea of like where to go from there. But I did like the concept of them rounding up humans and them eating. It was a little, so that part was fun. And I love the idea of them turning. That would have been a really cool thing to explore more because they would like randomly just snap into these weird phases where they would just stare off. It was that's fun. Let's explore this some more.
That's what I would have wanted to see with like Corvino or more with Skolomowski's.
Yeah.
Like they're or like to see some kind of more like decay in the zombies. Like then Corvino probably would have known like, oh shit, okay, so we are just gonna drop that at one point. So I might as well do this silly knife fight.
Exactly. Because like otherwise, I mean, it's 100% just your typical action movie where the evil organization is secretly taking over the world and he is fighting them. So
Hirschman's plan has a few wrinkles because of the
just a couple.
Well, it's complicated because of the nature of the zombie disease that the way Nutman presents it. Like they only have a limited amount of time that if they come back undead and in full faculties, that only lasts for a short period of time before their brain starts to degenerate and they break down. Yeah. It's further complicated by the time we get to the end and realize that Hirschman has ordered George Bush to launch the nukes.
Yes. I was trying to figure that out. Well, and like
whatever his game plan is to maintain power and rebuild society, it's pretty short-lived.
Let me have my 15 minutes of shame, Dad.
Rebuild American society, Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, but like, because I feel like if I remember correctly, he had a scientist group, like he had scientists, that knew, like either knew about the zombies or like knew that they wouldn't last for very long. So like he knew all of this information. So again, it's like, why are you wasting your time like setting this all up? Because
I mean, to quote Bill Murray from Ghostbusters 2, you're not really giving yourself enough time for the book and the big deal.
Because I mean, like you think about the way they have this set up to find humans to eat, there's a lot of logistics involved. So like that had to take some time to figure out. And it's like, why are you wasting the apocalypse on that?
Yeah. Seriously, go get drunk, go fuck, do something other than
run around, you're dead. Jump off of buildings or something.
You come up with.
Yeah. Like I just want to keep the world exactly the same, but not. But then I'm gonna blow us all up.
Right.
I feel like the nukes were kind of a leftover from like him writing this book during the Cold War.
Oh totally.
Yeah, completely.
But that like
it's a Cold War book, so there has to be a nuclear holocaust at some point.
Yeah.
Of course.
He is quite brutal. Nutman is in some of these things because yes, we have the brutal fight, and then I think it is Nick that comes down, and Corvino's like, "Kill me," and so then they shoot him in the head, and then throughout all of this, he's trying to find his wife, and his wife got on a boat with some family, and the family's slowly dying off, and once they get back, once they find each other, like she's dying. And so he ends up killing himself and her, and it's like, wow, out of this whole story, that's such a bleak ending.
But it gets bleaker, Matt.
Oh, I know. And then like the absolute best scene, like if the short, didn't read the short story, but if the short story was just this end scene, it would just have blown everyone away. The whole concept of this Bush,
zombie George Bush,
trying to remember to blow up the bomb, but not sure how to. So it's just this tension, like out of the whole book.
That's what I really
scratching off
loved about
pieces
that
of his
one.
face.
Yeah, that's what I really loved about that. It's like we get to see. This is where we get the taste of how this decaying is happening.
Yes. And like the tension, because he's like, we know again that he's getting ready to blow up a bomb just because we're smart readers, but like he's trying to remember and he's going back and forth on like timelines and wanting to play golf, and then like he's like, no, I got to do something. I got to go blow up the Russia. No, wait, we're friends with Russia. I got to go blow up these other group. And then
Bruce Bleak and is just like, oh yeah, Barbara's dead. And everyone's dead. And you're like, is this George, you okay, buddy?
Yeah. Oh, he's thinking about Millie and scratches his eyebrow, and his eyebrow falls off his face.
Yep.
He's trying to remember Camp David and like
golfing with Boris Yeltsin.
He's got to go find the case, and so that takes a while, and he had to cut off the guy that had the case's hand, and then he's like, well, I got to remember the song, and it's like some nursery rhyme, and it's just like the best. Like that would have been such an awesome short story, because it's just so tension of like, is he going to blow us up? Who's he going to blow up?
Yeah. Or is he going to die before he blows us up?
Yes, or is he going to die? I love that.
Yes, that was like the cream on the top of the story.
Yes,
in my opinion.
Totally.
Honestly, I wouldn't have given this book. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 on Goodreads. It would have been a 4, but this ending just was like,
that was the best.
Yeah, the ending is kind of what elevated it to me. If we're doing star rankings, to that 4, I probably would have hedged around like 3.5, but Zombie George Bush and his New World Order puts it right at that 4 mark for me.
I also love the whole like president of the United States of Hell.
Yeah.
Yes. That was awesome.
I am so looking forward to one day finding somebody on the internet complaining about how political horror is nowadays. And why can't it be more like Philip Nutman's Wet Work, which was not at all political?
Not at all.
Yeah, there's a lot of
at all with misogyny.
Yeah, it's not at all political with its story about the CIA being involved in the illicit drug trafficking or the Christo-fascism of George Bush's New World Order and evangelicals gaining nuclear power.
The over-policing and police brutality of minority neighborhoods.
Because they're all communist subversives
who are on PCP.
Yes. Especially, that meeting, especially with the police meeting. That I cringed so hard. So I was like, this is awkward.
The chief of police is like, it's all subversives on PCP, and the other guys, what about all the fucking undead people walking around? There are no
just
dead.
Silencing him, and he's just like, you go on leave, and you're like, what the fuck?
You all need to go back home, bring your families back to the station, and stay here. It's not safe because of all the subversives.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
there's a lot of this book's very political.
Oh yeah,
it touched a lot. A lot of like the 2 cop patrols that we are on are very telling.
Well, I love it too because Nick is just like, "Are you sure?" And the guy's like, I've been doing this job longer than you. I know what I'm fucking doing.
Yes.
Oh my I actually wanted to read more of Santos, to be honest. I was like, I like that character.
He was cool.
Yeah, and he gets killed off page. Like, that really surprised me. Like, I'm wondering where he's in, and then like 20 pages later, like, oh yeah, Santos died a week ago. I'm like, wait, what? Did I?
Mike, he probably died in that subway scene.
Yeah. I don't remember him dying at all. And then
it was probably in the cut subway scene.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
He should have restored that in the newer version. I don't know why he didn't.
I don't know.
Especially a restored version. At that point, you're not worried about page count. Just add in what you need to.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that was such, it's so crazy too, because it's just like this week later, and you're like, well, half the police force ran away. The rest of us are like in this gym, and we keep going out trying to kill more. It's just like
there's like, I will also say, I know we talked about earlier, but the gore in this book is just really well done.
Yes. But it's so okay, this is probably because of, I'm a woman or something, but I could not stop and just look, and it was like, Philip Nutman, you are really obsessed with breasts.
Yeah.
and really obsessed with, cutting the penises of people or biting them. I'm like, are you okay, Philip?
You should have been with us for our Richard Lehman discussion.
Oh Lord, yeah.
I did think about that a little bit.
But at the same time, I kept reminding myself, okay, this is an 80s kind of thing. This was not uncommon.
No, especially because at the beginning, so you have all this stuff about Nick and his dad and him being an alcoholic and doing all these things, and his wife is so which again, typical 80s kind of thing, is just so oh, it's okay, you shouldn't drink, and hides a book, a book on alcoholism, but doesn't want to tell him. But then we get 3 pages of them having sex and just how much she loves it, and I'm just really.
And always about the suppleness. I'm like, dude, I cringed so hard. I'm like,
oh my god,
supple.
Oh,
remember when we read the Nest?
Yes.
And
the one how could I forget?
The one strong female character got demoted to helper by the end of the book.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Yeah, she's there just.
Yes, it's terrible.
Yeah.
It's pure 80s misogyny where the one.
That's what I'm saying. It's okay, gotta remind myself this is 80s misogyny.
Yeah, it was the one prominent woman character in that book. By the end of it, the menfolk have arrived to solve the day, and she's there to make them sandwiches and soup and.
Yeah, it was just.
I mean, the female characters in this book were like that too. I mean, Sandy was just there as a damsel in distress, and the Jane and Sally, they were like, "Oh, we have made food.
Yeah,
want some food? We have some food in the pan."
I mean, was it Sandy? She's there just to observe her mother's death and then take care of her sister and her sister's son and husband, and
right, and that the next door guy who just hates everybody, who's also extremely racist, but instantly is in love with this wife, and oh my god.
Yeah, this book is very much a product of its time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Going into older horror, 80s fiction, you have to remember all this is a lot of it is a product of its time.
Yeah. For as much of an 80s, early 90s book, it is. I mean, reading it now, it still fits with the times pretty well. Reading this in a very short removed time from Trump and a failed insurrection to destroy our government in the middle of a pandemic.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And then the cop stuff. I mean,
it's
all of it.
This does not feel dated in terms of the political elements of the book.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not very far removed, despite being 30, 40 years old.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I 100% agree.
We get to a point where we see George Bush, and he's described as the president is drooling open-mouthed at his desk. I'm like, that could have been Trump.
Yes. Or
all
and then
he's concerned with is going golfing. That could have been Trump.
Yeah.
There is little to differentiate this book from present day.
And then also the rationalization that the Russians are enemies. No, wait, they're our friends.
Yeah. And
there's also that connection. You're like, yep.
Yeah. I will pick a random group.
Back to the ending too. I just love the end, the very end when it's and the president of the United States is hell pushed a small black button in the center of the other box. Let them hear the word of God, he thought, and he smiled.
Yep.
Oh man. Well, and it's also a perfect product of the 80s because we don't have any idea what's happening in the rest of the world, just the U.S.
Just the U.S.
Yeah, the U.S. is the center of the world.
Yeah. Yep.
This is funny though, because Mike, you and I, we read the short story, didn't we?
Yes.
I read the short story too.
And
okay.
Matt's the only one who did.
Matt's the only one.
No.
But it's funny.
Matt skipped that part of the assignment.
It's I had enough.
But when you compare it at least to the book, like to the novel, you can definitely see that there are like none of those elements are there in the short story.
Yeah. Like a lot got changed between the short story and the novel.
Yeah, I think that's funny because I think for the short story, it's you can definitely put that anywhere. Like that's a timeless piece.
Yeah, I mean that one is Corvino is more centered as being a part of the zombie crisis, right? Like he's deliberately attacking the school to capture the children and the teachers so that they can feed them to the president.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wait,
but
what?
that was the twist. That was the twist because when you're reading the short story, you just think that they are doing a kind of like a covert op, and that you kind of get this feeling like, okay, so these people that they just killed, even though they're children and women and stuff, they were supposed to be evil.
Yeah.
So you were like, okay, so they're just doing their job, and then suddenly, when they say we need to feed the president, I'm like, wait, what now?
Yeah, that gets changed in the story where Corvino and Skolimowski and their team are raiding an office under Hirschman's orders, and that's prior to when they meet up and capture Nick.
Yeah.
But in the novel, Corvino is more against this. Yeah, and in the short story, he's very much a part of it.
Yeah, he's like the leader of that cohort.
Yeah. He's like, all right, we killed all the kids, bring in the body bags.
The president's hungry.
Yeah.
So wait, is that what's the story?
That's it.
That's
and then after bringing the bodies up in the vehicle, Nick and the rest of the survivors, they storm the place and kill them.
Yeah.
And then
the story ends.
The president.
Yeah, and the story ends like, I think it's time we go to the White House.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it would have been a really neat element to put back into the book in some way. I know, obviously, with Corvino changed the way that he has in the book from the short story, but that element of Nick being like a freedom fighter kind of thing, that would have been a neat element to put back in along with the subway train.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because I guess in the book, it feels very neutered, Nick's group after the week, because like they're kind of working with the National Guard but kind of not, but then they're kind of just all escaping at the same time, so like they were definitely not freedom fighters.
No. And in the short story, Nick also has a lot more bite. He's like this pumped up, like, I want to shoot some zombies, bitch.
Yeah, he's a bit more rugged, tough guy in the short story than he is in the novel.
In the book, he's like, I don't want to be like my dad, and I'm drinking some more.
Yeah. Going to a strip club.
Yep.
So it was a good one. I mean, I think there's some things that could be done different, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's a really fun book.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like the old books, there are always some things that, you would want more out of or something like that. But, in the outcome itself, it was so enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's also, like, if you think about this and, like, The Rising, for instance, like, I didn't, like, the whole, like, intelligent zombies thing The Rising does, like, that's from Wetwork.
And also, for me, looking at this one compared to, like, Jonathan Mayberry's Joe Ledger series, like, this is kind of a prototype Patient Zero, where you've got this secret organization and a zombie outbreak, and it kind of feels like, okay, here's a little bit of inspiration for what Mayberry's Joe Ledger books would eventually become.
Yeah.
And I also think, like, Nutman himself was a very talented writer. Like, this book isn't perfect, but, like, I think if he had more books out there, it would have been great to see him, like, evolve as a writer.
Yeah,
I agree.
I wish we could have gotten more from him. This is obviously a lot of people have enjoyed it and recommended it, even though we only just discovered it. But it's a pretty lasting legacy for him. I mean, it wasn't just one and done and completely forgotten. I mean, this had an imprint on the horror genre.
He was a screenwriter. Did he write anything of note?
The Girl Next Door.
Oh,
yeah, he did.
Interesting.
I'm going to pull up his IMDb and see what else we got from him.
His IMDb's kind of lacking compared to, like, what is said about him in books and stuff.
I mean, and you mentioned that short story collection. I would definitely be down for reading more of his work. There's besides my complaints. I think especially that end stuff, he knows how to like do the tension, and he knows how to kind of like give you characters. So I think
I agree.
It'd be fun to kind of see what else he's got.
Yeah, looking at his IMDb, really the girl next door is the only thing that anyone I think would be familiar with. Yeah. He did a screenplay for something called Derelith, The Awakening.
All right.
And that's really about it, aside from the girl next door.
Didn't he do Abed as well?
He was a producer for Abed. I don't know what that is.
That could be a fun story. Well, not really fun. That could be a story we could discuss later in this podcast. It's a zombie story by Elizabeth Massey.
Okay.
It's very fucked up.
Another zombie story.
It's very fucked up. One thing I like about having the paperback too is the like back mail order pages.
Yes, I enjoyed that.
It's like you get like Clive Barker's The Damnation Game and your choice of volume 1, 2, or 3 of Books of Blood.
Oh, nice. You should redeem it.
Right? I always wonder about these. I'm like, should I fill one out just to see what would happen?
Congratulations. You're now a member of the Leisure Book Club.
Yay!
But,
send him a check.
Nutman was just a really talented writer.
Definitely worth hunting down just to see it if you haven't read it.
It's a really solid read. There are things that I would have loved to have seen expanded, but it's a pretty damn good read. Nevertheless, I was pretty happy with this one. It was a good find, Rich.
Yes.
Thank you. I try.
And I think if zombies were a little bit more popular at the time this came out, it definitely would have probably been adapted. But I think it took long enough for them not to, and now we've seen like elements of this in other zombie movies and clearly books too. That it would be really hard to do and not just look like everything else.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, I was thinking about, even though they're not zombies, but, like, the military group in 28 Days Later, and then, obviously, Army of the Dead, this unintentionally or intentionally pulls a lot from this, and so...
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, even elements of The Walking Dead in its later years with Alexandria and the other communities.
Yeah, so so unfortunately, I don't know if it would work as well or if it would just be more noise, but I think at the time it would have been really cool.
Yeah. Honestly, like I think it's a fun book to go back and visit from today's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely had like an impasting legacy on the horror zombie genre.
Oh yeah.
I'm very like finding it. I was very pleased and I was very happy with it. It's not perfect, as we said, but I think if you go and seek it out, you're going to have a lot of fun with it. And if you're a horror fan, it's a good book to have on your tattered tome shelf.
Yes.
There you go.
I got a nice tattered copy from eBay.
Nice.
But no, overall, like it's a shame what happened to Nutman. I think if his career went a different way, it could have been a lot better. But this had the unfortunate element of coming out right before the horror genre collapsed, and he had an unfortunate battle with alcoholism.
Yeah, just too bad.
But I do think it's definitely worth checking out, and I'm happy it's back in print, even if the new cover is fucking terrible.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with that. Is it just a bag of meat that's on the cover? Is that what that's supposed to be?
I don't think I've seen the cover of the new edition.
It's terrible.
Is it?
I don't think there's much difference, by the way, between the preferred edition that Overlook Connections released and is available widely for anyone to go and pick up. I don't think there's much difference between that and the original release, aside from looking at the editor's notes. He states he just kind of cleaned up the manuscript. Apparently, there was a sentence or two that the original publisher forgot to include in the manuscript.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And just correcting some typos. I think that was about it.
Sometimes those sentences can make all the difference. Like,
yeah,
the ending to Off Season, how they had to change, they made Jack Ketchum change his original ending by cutting the last sentence out.
Oh.
And the last sentence changes the entire tone of the ending.
Crazy.
So,
But with the new edition from Overlook, you do get the original short story included along with author's notes and an introduction.
Oh, yeah. That's nice.
And the short story, it was actually his first short story publication.
Yeah.
Huh. Nice.
And people liked it so much they wanted to turn into a novel. So
that is a pretty awesome deal right there.
Yeah, I mean, he was a great writer. I'm happy we covered it. Mm-hmm. And it's always fun to go back for some, forgotten classic horror novels.
Yeah.
I agree.
Exhumation of prior works that have kind of disappeared.
I will fully agree with that. And we'll be doing another horror novel in a few months. It is a longer book, but I think we're going to tackle the ceremonies.
Yeah, we need a little bit of time to prep.
We'll need some time for the ceremonies.
Yeah, we should probably hunt that down.
You can get it. You can get a ebook copy directly from the publisher for like £2.
Oh, nice.
Which is like $4 US.
Yeah, that's pretty cheap.
I have the paperback, which is like 600 pages.
Oh Lord.
Yeah, right.
I also have the 80s mass market paperback of it too.
Nice.
Well, I did get the reissued paperback, but then I went and bought the ebook because I don't feel like lugging around a 600-page book when I go back to work.
Yeah.
So.
Also, speak of 80s era misogyny, what I read of this book is going to be fun to discuss.
Oh, buddy. Great.
Salome is going to get her highlighter out.
Yep.
Yeah. Honestly, it's an important topic and a good topic to discuss, especially with fiction that's aged poorly versus fiction that hasn't aged poorly.
Right.
And the 80s, as we've discussed, 80s horror fiction was quite problematic.
Just a bit.
Just a teeny tiny bit. Next week, though, we will be discussing the recitation of The First Feeding by Hailey Piper, which you can find in Unfortunate Elements of My Anatomy, her short story collection.
I cannot wait to discuss it.
And I think we'll have a lot of fun with that.
Quick question.
Yes.
Is it recitation or recitation?
Maybe it's recitation.
Have I been saying it wrong?
Maybe I've been saying it wrong.
Maybe you can say both correctly? I don't know.
I thought it was
English
recitation.
is a weird language.
I'm
thinking recitation but that's just me.
Recitation? That's what you think?
Recitation?
I think it's recitation.
Is it an S or a C?
It's a C.
It's a C.
It's a C.
Recitation. I think it's recitation.
All right,
because recitation would be an S.
Yes.
But anyway, besides
we'll spend half the time discussing.
We will have it covered by next week.
Yeah, right.
Let's see. According to Google, it is recitation.
Recitation.
All right. Well, recitation. Google got it right.
All right. There we go. Thank you.
I got it wrong.
Dictionary.com.
Rest in peace, Rich.
You're canceled.
Well, I'm looking forward to discussing that with everyone next week. But until then, Vietnamese, where can listeners get in touch with you?
I'm always on Twitter. You can find me at Vietnamese S, like a capital S. And even though I really need to update my booktube on booktube channel, which is Fanged Pipsqueak Reads, I am still there. I just need to bank out some of the reviews that I have locked out. But I'm mostly there, and then I'm also on TikTok. Even though I'm not that as active, I'm more of a lurker. but my TikTok handle is basically the same as my author name, Vietnamese Mist.
All right, and Matt.
I am on Twitter at BrandenburgDM.
And Mike?
You can find me on Twitter at MikeH5856 or hit up my website at michaelpatrickhicks.com. Follow some links and buy some books.
And you can find me on Twitter at Rudy53088. And this is Richard Gerlach saying keep staring.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? My name is Duncan, and I'm the host of the podcast Hash Time with Duncan. On this show, I tackle all the biggest sports stories between the hashes and beyond. If it's a big story, I'm going to talk about it and give you my opinion on it. Subscribe to my show wherever you get your podcast. All you have to do, search Hash Time with Duncan. And you can follow the show on Twitter at Hash Time with D. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.